Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. My name is Dallas Hazlorus. I'm the founder and principal consultant at Treetop Security, where we specialize in cybersecurity solutions for small businesses. Today, we're going to talk about the 7 cybersecurity sins when working from home. A little bit about me. I have been doing this for a while. I have multiple degrees from Fort Hays State University, as well as a master's degree from the Sands Technology Institute. Also have an alphabet soup of security-related certifications, including GSC number 231. I am a co-organizer of the annual B-Sides Kansas City Security Conference. In 2003, I founded a IT company out of my basement, and that company was later acquired in 2016. And since then, I've been the lead design on the Peak platform for Treetop for the last 3 years. All right, so there are some hilarious work from home fails that are non-cybersecurity. Lots of them involve spouses running into walls, not knowing that the spouse is on a video call or something like that, as well as animals. So if you ever need a quick pick-me-up or just a quick laugh, please go out and look for some of those work from home failures. All right, so today we are going to be talking about cybersecurity failures. So cybersecurity failure number 1 is that I'm too small to be hacked, and this is a pride if you're going from the 7 deadly sins. And really what it comes down to is that no one wants our data. And I've heard this time and time and time again from small business owners as well as just small businesses in general. And really the truth of the matter is that 43% of all cyber attacks are targeted at small businesses. Now, whether they're unprepared, prepared, doesn't really matter. Vast majority are unprepared, but yeah, it kind of gives way to the fact that nobody's interested in that data. It just doesn't matter. Now, are we talking about targeted or untargeted attack? Well, the thing is that most of the attacks that we come to know these days actually work well, whether you're talking of a team of a couple of computers or a team or multiple thousands of computers. So if we're talking about ransomware works great whether there's 5 computers or whether there are 50,000 computers. Obviously the ransomware writers love it when there's more people, more devices. And really, what is ransomware? So, well, ransomware, crypto miners, botnets are all things that, in the last 10 years have definitely came about. They are the primary attack methods. Essentially, ransomware, they lock you out of your data. You have to pay a ransom to get your data back, just like every Hollywood movie you've ever watched in your life that involves some sort of ransom. Also, crypto miners, they're essentially using your computer resources, your system resources, to be able to mine and do things for them. In the case of botnets, they're using it to harass or hack others. Now, you may say, well, okay, so that's great and all, but that's like nation state level stuff. Yeah, you're absolutely right. There are nation states that are using just hacks on small businesses, hacks on regular corporations to be able to fund their economies. So don't just assume, oh, well, I don't have any data, I'm not going to get targeted. It doesn't really matter. These folks are absolutely utilizing it. By the same token, organized crime is absolutely using attacks as a way to fund their criminal organizations. So, all right, so number 2, overindulgence of devices. We call this gluttony. Now, the reason why this is important is that if you're on a home network, one compromised device on that same network can lead to the compromise of another device. So you don't just say, oh, well, this device here is completely 100% locked down. Yeah, it does matter to some degree, but by and large, it does not. So really, it comes down to who has access to your network. Is it kids? Is it the neighbor kids? Is it everybody and their dog that came over to your house in the past 10 years? So just some things to keep in mind. What devices have access? I mean, we're talking about gaming computers, which once again, obviously the kids, but keep in mind that gaming computers, it's not that they're maliciously doing anything wrong, but what they actually have is they've installed mods or modifications to their games, and a lot of times those bring a whole plethora of issues with it where they can have some problems on their computer and not even really know it, and instead that mod is actually doing some other things nefarious on their computer. You also have knockoff products, and by this I mean all the cheap products. A lot of IoT goes into this whole scenario. And so when you think about that, what all devices are on the network? Is it your Amazon Alexa? Is it your Google Home? Is it your doorbells? Is it your Xbox, refrigerators, camera systems? I mean, you could go on and on and on with this list of things that could potentially be on the exact same network, and you don't even really realize it until you really think about it. All right, so what are some easy ways for you to see what else is on that network? Well, there's actually a free and easy way to do this, and it just involves your cell phone or any Apple or Android device. You can go get it. It's called the Fing app. You can get it on the Play Store, on the Apple Store. And really, what you utilize it for is you download the app. You can sit there and do a real quick scan of your network. So over on the right-hand side there, you'll actually see a list of things that are found on this network. Well, this is helpful if you're doing exactly what we're doing today, which is trying to shore up your network, but also a lot of people are using it to, if they go to an Airbnb or a VRBO or something like that, and they're worried about camera systems and stuff, this is a perfect use case for finding those. Now, the other thing that image on the far right there shows is that this was actually taken when someone came up to me, a business owner came up to me and said, hey, I'm having problems IT-wise, I'm having problems with my Wi-Fi. Is there something you can just at least look at and figure out what's going on? Well, okay, sure. I handed them my credit card so they could run the card for my restaurant visit. Just happened to take a look, and I said, hey, can I hop on your guest real quick and just see what's going on? Yeah, absolutely. So I went ahead, hopped on the guest Wi-Fi, ran a scan with Fing. It's not anything real in depth or something that you think is super techy, but instead what I came back with was printers, speakers, and these are the speaker systems, not anything else. Servers, so their server system was on there. Their point of sale systems were on there. So once again, this is not something that is super technical, super in depth. And the owner came back to me and I showed him what all I found. And I said, your regular network and your guest network, they're all on the exact same network. That's a huge, huge problem for PCI compliance and a number of other things. But, think about all that credit card data. And it's not really to say that, hey, you need to worry about PCI compliance or anything else. If you're working from home, maybe you do, maybe you don't. But really, it's just to emphasize the point that, from the time that they took my card, went and ran it, came back, I already had all this information. So it's not like this takes, hours or anything like that to run. It is literally a matter of minutes. All right, so a few other things. Wireless and a firewall. These are things that you should be checking out when you're worried about working from home. So, what's the default username and password that's on your systems? This is very, very important. We're not talking your Windows systems. We're actually talking your wireless, your firewall. Make sure that you're using WPA2 AES. Now, once again, this may seem like, oh, well, this is something really complicated. No, you actually see this a lot of times as you're connecting to the wireless. So once again, don't think that this is something super techy. Also, need to make sure that you're using, disabling WPS. WPS is your Wi-Fi protected system. What that is the button on the back. So if you connect up to your Wi-Fi and it says, oh, just push the button on the back, and you can do that, that's a huge, huge problem. In fact, WPS has been shown to be bypassed in about 24 hours, assuming there's no other mitigating controls in effect. But yeah, definitely something that you need to definitely be concerned about if you're bringing work and putting it on your home network. Now, the other thing that a lot of people tend to forget, and it's because it's so obvious, is really your wireless key and your password. What do you use to get onto your network? More so, when was the last time that it was changed? Is it something, say, that's using your phone number? And I highlight this because we found that this is used overwhelming by ISPs, by IT folks, as a wireless key because, it's a certain number of digits and it tends to just work and people are able to remember it. Unfortunately, phone numbers can be hacked in about 10 minutes. So that's really scary when you think about it, that anybody can have access to your network in just under a 10-minute time span. That's really, really scary. If you do want to read a little bit more about that, I did write something up a few years ago when I discovered this practice kind of in the wild, and a number of IT folks, a number of security folks all came back and said, yeah, we're actually seeing this in our area as well. So if you go to linuxincluded.com, why phone numbers make horrible Wi-Fi passwords, down there at the bottom, that'll describe this in a little bit more detail, as well as why you shouldn't be using your phone numbers for your passwords. Now you may say, okay, that's all fine, well and dandy. What's a good password? How do I know? Well, use passphrases, and you're going to hear me say this time and time again. Use passphrases. So if we're looking at a really, really difficult password to get onto your network, it may be, a jumble of uppercase, lowercase, special characters, all sorts of stuff. You don't need any of that. Instead, the password that's there, stay off my Wi-Fi at home, please. That is a 24-character password and a fantastic password that is not easily cracked. So just keep that in mind, that length is absolutely better than complexity or anything that, 8 characters or 10 characters or something like that. Try and use, like I said, at least 20 characters, and that will definitely help shore up some of the security issues associated with Wi-Fi. All right, so next steps. Well, these are definitely long-term steps that you can take, not something maybe that's gonna, just be a snap of a finger and taken care of. If you do not already have one, you should absolutely have a properly configured company VPN. And notes I'm highlighting the properly configured company VPN. And also note that I say that this helps. This does not mitigate all those other concerns. It can definitely help, but it does not get rid of all those other concerns. The other one is segment your network. And this is unfortunately going to require some new equipment unless you've went with some higher end equipment at home to begin with. So, just a few things that if this is going to be your new norm, these are absolutely things that you should be looking at. All right, so number 3, uncontrolled device security. And we call that WRAF. And really what it comes down to is keeping prying eyes away. Password on your computer. Once again, passphrases, passphrases, passphrases. Here on your computer, at least 16 characters. Once again, length is better than complexity. The other thing you want to do is lock your computer when you're walking away. Now you can set it to auto lock after a period of inactivity. If you're using Windows, use your Windows key L. If you're using Macintosh, Control-Shift-Power will do the exact same thing and lock it up. You can also put either one of them to sleep, and it should come back to where it requires a password in order to be able to get in. Now, the other thing that people tend to forget is our laptops, our phones, everything else all has biometric devices, which is your fingerprint or eye scanning or face scanning or something like that, facial recognition. You can absolutely buy those exact same devices for use on your desktop computer at home. So, just don't think about, oh, now I have to type in this password every time. Don't let that be something that stops you from doing that. Instead, look at one of those biometrics, fingerprint or facial recognition or something like that you can use on your home computer to make it a little bit easier on yourself. Well, I already talked about it a little bit, but the PIN and biometrics that are on portable devices, those absolutely work on your desktop and laptop computers as well. And then last but not least, and this goes back to the years that I spent, especially in IT and working a lot of people from home, is that we just heard time and time again that, well, the grandkids were by this weekend and now all of a sudden the computer's not working right, or we're getting all these pop-ups. And it's not that the kids were being malicious. They were playing games, they were loading things, and all of a sudden they get a couple of pop-ups that they don't know what it is, and they say yes, 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 and before you know it, they have a computer that's just completely riddled with spyware. So just keep that in mind, that, make sure, it makes you seem like a jerk a little to some degree, but, keep the kids away from those computers, especially the work computers. All right, so the other thing is a lot of people show their work from home setups. Now, whether that is showing just screenshots Where they were a few weeks ago, where they were a lot of people were sharing Zoom meeting IDs and things like that accidentally. They were just trying to show it. The picture in the middle there is actually not a work from home setup, but it is absolutely relevant to the discussion. Is that this is a picture of somebody that was on a evening news, and you could zoom in because of all of our high resolution video, high resolution cameras, and you were able to zoom in and see exactly what the password for that computer was. So two issues here. Number one, don't put passwords on sticky notes at your computer, at your house, at your work, anywhere. But then also, just be very cognizant of your surroundings. Make sure that you're not accidentally disclosing things that you shouldn't. And it may not always be the most obvious thing. So, because of our high resolution cameras, because of our high resolution video, keep in mind that you can look at those things, you can look at screens, and you can zoom way in. So you may have file names on your computer that are client names, or maybe even customer names if you're, say, dealing in healthcare, to where that's actually a HIPAA violation now at that point. So just keep that in mind. The other thing is that, applications you use. If I'm an attacker and I'm wanting to attack your organization, knowing what applications you use is absolutely important to now trying to compromise your network, compromise your systems. So if you look down there in the lower left, a while back, I had actually shared my setup, my work from home setup. And you'll notice that, one thing that you can't see is you can't even see what operating system that I'm utilizing, but you can't see any icons. I did hide all the icons. I also didn't show any taskbars, any toolbars, anything. Just very, very important. Don't give somebody too much information. And once again, just be very, very cognizant of what's around you. Also, the other thing you can do is actually resize those pictures. So I mentioned, we have these high resolution images, these high resolution videos. Well, if you resize those pictures before you actually share them, now if somebody tries zooming in, they're not going to see that password. Instead, they're just going to see a pixelated blob. So just keep that in mind as you're sharing some of those images out. Make sure that you're not oversharing what you don't need to show. Another essential part of security is staying up to date. New security updates, new security issues are found every single day, regardless of what you're utilizing, whether it's Windows, Apple, any one of those. Also keep in mind, if you're still using Windows 7, Windows 7 was actually end of life in January 2020. So just keep that in mind, that you're no longer receiving security updates unless you did pay for them, which is kind of a special case scenario that you're probably not doing at home. Also, a lot of people remember the Windows updates and the Apple updates. Keep in mind, you also have third-party updates, whether that's Microsoft Office, your browser, or, we can't do anything without a browser these days. So, make sure that Chrome, Safari, Firefox, all of those are up to date. Adobe Reader's another big one, just because a lot of people are using PDFs. A lot of people use those PDFs for work and for business. So make sure that your Adobe Reader is up to date. Zoom is a fantastic example. Everybody's using Zoom these days. Zoom just had a new version update just a few days ago. So if you go to, click profile and then check for updates, you can actually see if there's a new Zoom update available for you. Definitely do those. A lot of times they do take care of security issues and things of that nature. Antivirus. If you are using traditional antivirus and you're not staying up to date with your definitions, you just as well honestly not even have antivirus for the most part. So just make sure that you are getting definition updates with your antivirus as well. And then we already talked about it a little bit, but mobile devices are no different than any of these others. If you're getting updates or anything like that, or it says, hey, you need to install this software, make sure that you are doing those on your mobile devices as well. You don't need to do them right this very second in most cases, but I would definitely do them in the first few days that they are available to you. All right, so next steps. Number one, separate work devices. That's just has to be a must if you are going to be doing this for any long period of time. Keep the business and the work 100% separate. Second one is make sure that you're using centralized managed updates as well as antivirus. Make sure that your company has complete control of those. And once again, that's much easier to do if you are working on a separate work device. All right, so number 4 is not treating data like it's your data. Number 5 is longing to communicate insecurely. These are envy and lust, and we're going to kind of smush these together because there are a lot of similarities when we're talking about them. So first and foremost, we'll talk about scattershot storage and technology. And really what it comes down to, if your IT department, if your company was unprepared for this new norm of work from home, then you better be prepared for shadow IT. And shadow IT is basically people just doing whatever they need to do to get things done. They'll find alternatives to getting things done, and a lot of times it's not a corporate policy or corporate strategy or things that have been well vetted. So, just keep those things in mind. So what are we talking about? Well, number 1, if you're used to using a server or some sort of centralized storage that everybody can kind of share documents, well, guess what? Unless you have a VPN, unless you have something else already in place, people are going to be finding alternatives. Whether that's alternative is Dropbox, whether it's OneDrive, Google Drive, email, Slack, Microsoft Teams. I've seen, an explosion across all of those things for how people are sharing data and getting things done, really, at the end of the day. What it comes down to is, make sure that if you're in a regulated industry, especially whether you're dealing with PII, PHI, protected health information, or personal identifiable information, make sure that you realize that right now, a lot of these regulations have been laxed. Unfortunately, as soon as all of this is over, hopefully, whether we're talking about 6 months, or we're talking about 2 years, if a hack or some sort of breach occurs, 6 months down the road, 2 years down the road, that's going to be a huge, huge issue. And I'm guessing those regulations are not going to be concerned about, well, COVID-19 or coronavirus was 2 years ago. We'll be okay with this. No, it's not going to happen that way. So, just make sure that you're really paying attention to where that data is being stored. Like I said there, maintain order now, you'll thank me later. Another thing is data protection. If you're using Amazon or Google Home or anything like that, make sure that you understand those devices are always, always listening. Maybe you don't share, state secrets or anything like that, but, there's still private, confidential conversations that you're having. So just keep that in mind. Backups at this point, because we don't have these centralized storage solutions, backups become even more important, whether it's a hardware failure, whether it's an accidental deletion, whether it's ransomware. Once again, even if you're doing all the things right, ransomware is, still there, and no protection is absolutely perfect. Another thing to consider doing, if you're not already doing it, full disk encryption, FDE. That helps if a device is lost, a device is stolen. You're really only out the cost of the device. You're not out whatever's on that device, right? So really, in our opinion, we recommend it for absolutely everything. It used to be that people would say, oh, if you're dealing with PII, if you're dealing with PHI, really look at doing some of these full disk encryption items. But at this stage of the game, it's just use it for everything. It really comes down to what has the potential to store PII and PHI, not whether it's there, whether it has the potential to do it. So what are we talking about? Windows, if you're using Windows Professional, especially Windows 10 or anything like that, you have BitLocker as an available option. And then if you're in the Mac world, you do have File Vault. Also, if you're dealing with mobile devices, tablets, phones, anything like that, you have a PIN and passcode on your boot. Also keep in mind that that decryption process actually is tied to that PIN and passcode a lot of times. So as you're booting up that device, it comes up and it prompts you for that. When you actually put that PIN or passcode in, that's what actually decrypts the device and allows you to use it. So just keep that in mind. Now, if we use just healthcare as an example of secure communications, is whatever you're utilizing industry and regulatory approved? In the example of healthcare, a lot of times it simply comes down to does the vendor actually offer a BAA, a business associate agreement? If we're talking about video conferencing, you have Zoom or Zoom Business. They do not offer a BAA. You do have Zoom for Healthcare, which actually offers it. The cost difference, though, is free or very, very low cost versus a minimum of $200 per month for 10 devices or 10 users. So that's a pretty substantial difference, especially if you're dealing with smaller companies. Also, you have document storage and sharing. Google Drive does not offer a BAA. G Suite by Google, which is essentially the exact same thing, does. Also, the cost difference there is free versus $6 per month. And of course, the G Suite stuff does come with some additional services. But, you know, that's a fairly big difference when you're talking about free, right? All right, so some next steps, some things to think about long term is disk encryption. Honestly, just do it if you're not already doing it. That's just a non-starter in my opinion. Solutions must be company and regulatory approved. You know, make sure that you're following industry guidelines. As simple as that. And then also, you know, going back to our previous point about the separate work devices, this is another case where, you know, that separate work devices just absolutely comes into play here. All right, number 6, lacking vigilance, and we call this sloth. And really it comes down to criminals are changing what they're doing. Here in this graph, we'll see that new domains are being registered related to Corona, COVID, vaccine, any one of those things. An example of that is id-covid19.com. Don't go there. That's a bad site. But criminals are absolutely using this for their phishing campaigns and things like that. They're trying to get people to click on things, to just things that are not normal to us. They want us to go to those places, so they're snatching up new domains as a result of that. Another thing that criminals are doing is that they're tailoring their attacks based off of what we're doing, right? So, you know, Zoom, for instance, a lot of us are now utilizing Zoom on almost a daily basis. A lot of people that were never utilizing Zoom before. So criminals are now looking for 0 days. Nation states are looking for 0 days. Fraudsters are trying to use the stimulus checks for some of their scams. Google, you know, in their effort to fight this, they're blocking 18 million COVID-19 scam emails each day, and that doesn't include the 240 million daily spam messages that they get in relation to that as well. Down in the lower left, you'll see that cyber criminals are trying to exploit Zoom's popularity by sending out meeting requests and things like that and utilizing it in their phishing emails. Down in the lower right, the FBI has noticed a quadruple in the number of cyber attacks since the outbreak. So to say that criminals are changing what they're doing is an understatement of the year. Now, why does this change matter? Well, it's because we let our guard down. We have different work schedules, we have shared spaces, we're utilizing different software, like I told you before, Zoom, Teams, Slack, all sorts of things that a lot of these folks have never utilized before. We're communicating a lot differently, we're consuming news differently. If you think about it, we're even receiving money differently. A lot of small businesses are now going through the loan process. They're trying to do wire and ACH transfers. People are trying to receive their stimulus checks. You know, unemployment's something else that a lot of people have just never used, never seen before. And this is really just a perfect storm, a prime opportunity for cyber criminals to try and attack us. Next steps, you know, increase awareness now. That's really what it comes down to. And also, you know, make awareness part of your ongoing company culture. Number 7, education is expensive. And we associate that with greed. And really, is it? We like to say it's free 99. If you're not doing anything today, we absolutely offer some free training, free slide deck from us here at Treetop. Now you may say, oh, well, these jokers just kind of put together a slide deck. No, We put this together over a several month span, got lots of input from tons of industry professionals. It's now been downloaded in over 150 countries in just the first year alone. So just over, I think, 7 months span. And then, it's been recommended and shared by numerous security folks, including most recently at the RSA conference in February 2020. So really, really proud of that. Something that we just gave back to small businesses, to the community, in hopes that everybody kind of gets on board and raises awareness. Now, aside from the slide deck itself that we did open source and release for anyone to download, one of the first things that people started asking is, well, can you just do the video? I just want to show it to our business, and if you could just do a video, that'd be great. I don't want to do, the whole presentation aspect. We just released a video not that long ago. We did it in association with the new slide deck, which is version 1.1. So both of those were released in March of 2020, along with, at treetopsecurity.com/cat, the website for it. We also have, the slides, obviously. We have that video. We have an awareness quiz that after you're done with the training itself, you can actually go through and take the quiz and see how you did, see how you retained information. We also have a certificate of completion. So, if you want to pop your name on there and print it out and put it on the wall so you can show others that you're more cybersecurity aware, great. The other thing that we do offer on our website is a free newsletter. You are free. You can sign up for that. We only do them usually on a monthly basis, but on special instances, certain things happen. We have been known to release them in addition to just the monthly one. And if you have any questions, by all means, reach out to me, reach out to our team at Treetop Security. You have our phone number. If you do need anything from a cybersecurity perspective for your small business, we would absolutely be honored to help provide those needs to your business.